evening, everyone. I'm Joe Skirto, Executive Director of the Minnesota Racehorse Engagement Project, and welcome to 10 Questions. Tonight's guest is going to be Justin Revak from Rocket Wrench Racing. That's a mouthful. And he's going to be answering 10 questions about what it's like to be a thoroughbred racehorse owner. Hopefully it'll answer some questions for you. And at the end of the interview, which will move fairly rapidly, you can get information about how to contact us, and we can answer some additional questions for you, hopefully helping your dream come true of owning your very own thoroughbred racehorse right here in Minnesota. Enjoy. All right, welcome, Justin. Thanks for doing this, and we've got 10 questions for you, so enjoy, and let's get right out of the gate with what was your first horse that you ever owned, and who helped you get involved? You see how I snuck 2 questions in for one?
There you go.
First horse, and who got you involved?
So the first horse was named Rocket Wrench, and that is how we got our stable name, Rocket Wrench Racing. And that was in 2010. I saw an ad on Craigslist. Guy was selling 1% shares in a min-bred 2-year-old, unraced 2-year-old. And they were $300 a share. Basically, he was trying to raise $30,000 to pay for the training for a year or two. So I bought 1% and went out to Roan's to see him, and he looked like a donkey. Well, his head was too big, his legs were too big for his body, but I figured it'd be fun, and you know, what's $300? So he raced for 2 years, didn't get a win at all. And the original owner was tired of burning money on him. So he ended up giving him to me. So he came to my farm for the winter. And then in 2012, I moved him over to Burnell's barn. And I went on Craigslist, got 10 partners to all put in $1,000 each. And so we had enough to pay for the year. He ended up, he had 6 races. I think he had 1 win, 2 seconds, and 2/3. And we actually turned a little bit of a profit. So I had a few guys then that were hooked. And after that, we just started claiming horses. And here we are, I think 8 years later, doing really well. And by the way, Rocket Wrench still lives at my house. So he's retired.
So he's had a good afterlife, huh?
Yeah. He looks as good as I don't know how old he is now, but he looks as good as he did when he was on the track.
Oh, that's a great story. And once again, a little bit of just a few dollars, and then you ended up getting some partners, and you were in the business.
Yeah.
You live close to the racetrack or to Canberra?
Yeah, so I live in Elko, Newmarket, probably 20 miles away at the most. So easy trip over there for me.
You know, one of the questions, and this is question number 2 that I get, that I struggle to answer when you try to tell people what it's like when your horse wins or to own a thoroughbred racehorse and how to put that in words. We've been there. We know what it's like, but can you describe it any better than I can?
That's the hardest question. It's such a rush. It's one of those things that I guess ranks right up there with, you know, the day you get married, the day your kids are born, where you just, if you could bottle that feeling and sell it, you'd be a millionaire, because there's just nothing like it. And it doesn't get any different every time. I feel that same way. You know, we've had, I don't know how many wins since then, and it just takes you right back to that same great feeling.
Yeah, and I said it is difficult to describe. I had one person describe it to me as it's like your kid is on the pitcher's mound, bottom of the 9th, bases are loaded, 2 outs, they're up by 1 run, and if he throws a strike, you're elated, like getting to the winner's circle. If he doesn't, then you got to console everybody, and it's a long drive home. But,
winning's a whole lot more fun than losing, and it's just, you know, even when your horse runs second, it's like, you know, I always get, my wife says, oh, that's great, he ran second. I'm like, well, we lost. You know, they don't take your picture when you run second. So, you know, you either win or you lose.
Which is a great transition to question number 3, and that is, besides winning the race, what other things has owning a thoroughbred racehorse brought to you personally?
Well, you know, I got into horse racing first because I love horses. I grew up on a horse farm. I always had horses as kids, and so it was just kind of a natural transition. So being able to go to the backside has been, I love that, going back there in the morning and seeing the horses and getting to know the trainer and the assistant trainer and the grooms. Um, you know, that's the best part. Also, it's just for us, it's a real family experience. Family and friends all come out when we have horses running, and it's just a great time to get together and enjoy the same thing. Another piece of it is I've met so many good people. I go to these owner view conferences around the country. They've had them at Keeneland and Gulfstream and all over the place. I think I've been to about 5 of them. And, when you can get in a room with, 200 other people that just love the sport, you never run out of things to talk about. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think those relationships are something that, some of my best friends now are people that I've owned horses with, actually trainers that have trained horses. You end up building really good relationships, and they become lifelong relationships. So that's something, outside of the thrill of racing, that you do get to experience. And if it's a family affair, which is even better, to get your family involved, that's terrific as well. We talked a little bit earlier about how you got in and really for just 1% of a horse. How do you think we overcome the thought that owning a thoroughbred racehorse is only for millionaires?
Well, I think that, you're seeing a lot of smaller groups, all the way down to these micro shares where, right now there's 6,000 some people walking around that can tell you that they owned part of this year's Kentucky Derby winner, and they're not lying to you. I mean, so that's pretty amazing. And there's everything in between. Our group we only have 5 partners. I know others have 50 or more. So there's just so many different ways that you can get in and just be a part of it without spending money you don't have or a fortune to get in.
Yeah, I think that's something that's been new in the last decade. It's been kind of these larger partnerships and these groups that are put together. Usually you'd have to get together with people that you knew. Now you can actually end up meeting people that are involved in a partnership. So it sure has made it a lot easier, and it's not open to millionaires. I mean,
right.
Just millionaires. It is open to millionaires. We've got a few of them.
Well, there's plenty of those.
Plenty of those. Tell me something that you wish somebody would have told you prior to you starting to get involved in owning a thoroughbred racehorse that may have saved you a few bumps and bruises along the way.
I would say find the right trainer. And people probably did tell me that, because that seems to be what, when we have these MTA meetings, that seems to be what everybody says, right? Is find the right trainer. But I think that's been the most challenging piece, is just really finding a trainer that you kind of gel with, have the same, the same game plan in mind. Because it's great when you do find those people that you enjoy working with, and they communicate well with you, and you're on the same page. It's as good as things can be. But on the flip side of that, when you get a horse with a trainer who doesn't call you back, doesn't tell you what's going on, the horse can sit in the barn for months at a time without running and waiting for the perfect race versus, running in a race that will fit. It's the two extremes of frustration or just really enjoying yourself. And I think, it took us a few years to try out a few trainers to find, a couple that we really like to work with now.
Well, that's perfect for the next question, actually. And that is how do you find that right trainer? What's on your personal checklist, or what would you advise somebody else when they're looking for a trainer? It's not, you don't get to date 50 different trainers that may be at Canterbury Park. So what did you do, and what are some of the things to look for that you could advise some people getting into the game?
So there's one myth out there that I hear people talk a lot about is that, if you're a small time owner, you want to be careful about going with a trainer that has too many horses, because you're just a small fish in a big pond. And I kind of went along with that and in the beginning and found that, that's just simply not true. We've had horses with trainers with 5 horses in the barn, and our current trainer has almost 200 in his barn. Our trainer now, Carl Broberg, I text him, within 2 minutes I get a text back. I've had a trainer with 5 horses in the barn that he doesn't text back or he doesn't call back. I'd have to go out to Canterbury to find him to get an answer to my questions. So, I think that just starting out by communicating with them a little bit, send them some questions via text, see if they respond, and just spend some time with them to figure out what their philosophy is. And, finding a trainer with kind of a mindset of understanding how much money you have to spend and what your goals are, I think is really helpful too, because having that business mindset of these owners can't afford to have a horse that's not racing, because most of us can't. And a lot of trainers don't really take that into consideration. They just they're going to do things how they want to do them, and if it works out for the owner, it's great, and if it doesn't, then the owner's out of business.
Yeah, those are real good points. Also communicating what you're looking for to the trainer so that they know up front. So it's kind of mutual. They've got to communicate with you. You've got to communicate back. What are your thoughts? And this is a bonus question, I guess,
Sure.
that just came to mind. A lot of people feel once they choose a trainer, it's like a marriage, that they're there forever. And I think most successful owners have found that they've had numerous trainers, maybe for different horses, maybe for different times, or maybe just for a change, or things weren't working out. Have you alluded to the fact you've had a couple different trainers. How would you advise someone if they're just not happy with a trainer? Is it a difficult thing to do, or?
Yeah, I guess I'd say if it's like a marriage, I've had a few divorces. None of them have been ugly. I'd say they've all been pretty amicable. But that's the thing, is it's you don't have any kind of contract or there's nothing saying that you can't find another trainer. One thing that I started to do was have more than one at a time, because I think that it maybe creates a little competition when you ask one. If one of the things that when we're claiming horses, I like to look for horses in the racing form and send my thoughts to the trainer, send my suggestions to the trainer, and let them tell me if they want to go for the horse or not. And I found that back with some of the other trainers, you didn't get a response for a few days. And once I had 2 trainers, though, I'd send them both the horse, and if one didn't get back to me and the other did and wanted to go for it, then I'd go with that trainer. But it's you just gotta you gotta find somebody that works well with you. A big thing with claiming horses also is understanding what's the next step for that horse before you claim it. We typically have the next race in mind. Hopefully it's in the book. If it's not, just knowing that that's the type of race that goes, and getting in agreement with your trainer about, do you think this horse can go there, before you claim it, and then realize that you're not on the same page, I think is really important too.
Yeah, it's no fun claiming a horse and finding that you got to drop the horse in class in order to get him raced, in
Right.
a few weeks. So that's a very good point. They say you always remember your first, and you talked a little bit about Rocket Wrench and so forth. But aside from that horse, which one has been your favorite thus far?
So I love old horses. We claimed a horse. So we started our current partnership in 2018, and we just burned through almost all our money by about August. We were almost broke, and that's when I actually talked to Carl Broberg for the first time actually contacted him on Twitter and said, hey, we're looking to go a different direction. Would you want to get another horse at Canterbury? And so there was this old horse called Crooked as Can Be, that old gray horse, 9-year-old, had come up from Prairie Meadows. I think he's running for 7,500. I think we had about $9 grand left in our bank account. So we claimed him, ran back 2 weeks later, and close to closing day, and just crushed on the turf, got out on the front end and stole it from him. And so that was awesome. That was part of our comeback. And then he went down to Louisiana that winter. And so I got to go down to the fairgrounds. My son and I took a trip down there. He won at the fairgrounds. He had 2 wins at the fairgrounds. I went to Delta to see him run in a stakes race. He didn't do very well. And then went to Oaklawn and saw him run 3rd and got claimed from us. So 2 wins as a 10-year-old, 1 as a 9-year-old. And, that was really exciting. So he's a special one for me.
You gotta love those hard knocking horses. I said the ones that know what they're there for and enjoy their work each and every day.
Yeah, we've got an 11-year-old down in Louisiana right now, Social Misfit. He won about a month ago at Evangeline as an 11-year-old. So we're hoping to keep him around and hopefully get a win at 12.
You mentioned a few tracks that you've had horses at, and we know you're here locally. What is it about Canterbury and racing at Canterbury that makes it so special?
So I think the big thing is that it's home. I was I don't know what I was, 11, 12-year-old kid at Canterbury the day they opened. First time I had seen horse racing live, and I thought it was the greatest thing I'd ever seen. And I've been back, so often ever since. I'd drag my parents out there. But until I was able to get my license, and then I worked at Canterbury. I worked on the turf track. I worked in concessions. I was the guy that moved now they have gates. They used to have ropes out there in the paddock. So it's home to me. I always wanted to have horses and have them run. And so to grow up and have horses running at Canterbury is really, really special. And the other thing about it is, it's at Canterbury, it's horse racing first. Obviously the ownership group and the Sampsons, they're all about horse racing. A lot of the tracks these days are just casino companies that run horses as few days as they can, just to be able to operate their casinos. Where Canterbury has a card club and the agreement with the Mystic Lake, but it's all about horse racing, and you could see that especially this year with COVID. A lot of the tracks are locking the horsemen out as soon as things got bad, and Canterbury did just the opposite and found a way to get the horsemen in there. I think they ran a great meet considering the circumstances, and we always feel welcome there. So. I think whenever you go to another track, it always makes me appreciate Canterbury a little bit more.
Yeah, it's truly a special place, and this year was odd, but once the crowds get back, that's a whole different ball game. There's nothing like those crowds of 10,000 people cheering for a horse as it's coming down the lane. And speaking of which, since you were a fan and actually an employee at Canterbury, once you become an owner, does that become a visit to Canterbury becomes a visit on steroids? I mean, is it a whole different feel once you're an owner?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's, I watched those people getting their picture taken in the winner's circle when I was a kid and just always wanted that. So it's just a real special feeling. And like this year, just with the COVID, it was when other people couldn't get in, they made it clear that we were going to be able to be there and see our horses run. And, I'll always appreciate that.
Right. Yeah. They're always trying. And that's why it's a great experience being a racehorse owner at Canterbury. And, the Racehorse Engagement Project, our main mission is to introduce new people to thoroughbred racehorses, primarily active through ownership or even retired once they've retired and move on to a second career. So we're always trying to espouse as much, information and advice that we can for people getting in, because it can be intimidating for a lot of people. You've been there, you've done it. What do you think is one or two morsels of great advice from Rocket Wrench Racing about getting into racehorse ownership?
I think the way you should think about it is it's not, it's not an investment. You're not looking for a big return on the money that you put in. I think about it like vacation. You're willing to spend $5,000 to go to Hawaii. What you're going to get is some great experience, some great memories, hopefully some good pictures. And horse racing, owning racehorses is the same thing. Hopefully you get a good horse. Hopefully you get a good experience. Hopefully you get your picture taken, and that's something that you'll always have, and nobody can take away from you. And so if you look at it like that, I think you can't lose. If you look at it as, I've got an extra 5,000, I'm going to invest in a racehorse. Yeah, probably not the best way to invest your money, but you can win money. We've done quite well. I still haven't found a way to make a living at this, but I think that's all of us little guys' dreams is, to get that big horse that can actually propel you into actually doing this and not having to have that other job that allows you to do this.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Is as far as the investment really is in the experience that you have, and you can go to Disney World, or you can go on a vacation and spend $5,000, or have a country club membership, or buy season tickets. But there's never the opportunity for them to hand you your money back plus some on the way out. And racing does give you that.
Yeah, and there's nothing better than when, because when we have partners or we bring new partners in, it's always, I always kind of give them that speech of just be prepared to lose it all. And if you don't, you're doing great, and we'll keep on going. And I think that if you have that attitude and you actually get some money back, it couldn't be better.
Well, the final question of the night is going to be, I'm not going to ask you what kind of tree you would be, or boxers or briefs, but I am going to ask you, dirt or turf? If I'm buying a horse, do I want one for the dirt, or do I want one for the turf if I'm racing at Canterbury Park?
So that's kind of a two-part question. Again, I think you snuck two in there, but I love turf horses and turf racing. There's nothing better than when you're standing at the rail and those 1.16 turf races with a full field, and they come down the stretch for the first time. The sound of the hooves is, it's clean, it's beautiful. I love turf racing, but I never want to have a horse that can only run on the turf. I always look for turf horses, but I want the ones that if the track turns sloppy, he can run on the dirt. Also with turf horses, you can only drop to a certain level, because a lot of tracks, like our track is about 7,500 is as low as you're going to go on the turf. And if you got one that can't quite hit it there, there's not a whole lot of places to go with them. So I love the turf, but I want to have a horse that can run on the turf and the dirt.
Well, I think that's good advice. I said there are a lot of folks that really, from a handicapping perspective, really love the grass racing. Yeah. But when you're owning a horse, like you said, you have to look where they're going to be, and you have to watch that condition book and so forth. So your trainer can help you with that. But I think saying a turf horse that can also do the dirt, or a horse that's multi-dimensional, is probably your best bet.
Yeah, that horse Crooked as Can Be that I mentioned, he won up here on the turf, and we sent him down to Louisiana, and he ran on the turf, and he just wasn't quite good enough. And had he not been able to transition back to the dirt, we probably would have had to retire him, because there's just nowhere else to go. Instead, we were able to run him for 5 on the dirt, and that's when he started winning again. So that's a great example of having that, the ability to run on either surface is really a good thing to have for a horse.
Well, that's terrific. Well, thank you very much for answering our 10 questions. if people have more questions, I know you're pretty active on Twitter. You're under your handle is Rocket Wrench Racing. Is that correct?
I think it's Rocket Wrench 12.
Rocket Wrench 12. So look for Justin there, and feel free to shoot him a message and follow what he's doing on the racetrack and maybe even off sometimes. But thanks again for joining us and being part of this. I think the people who are interested will really appreciate it.
Great. I'm happy to do it. Thanks for asking me.